of honor and a creature of legend.
Hello, and welcome to Media-eval, a medieval pop culture podcast, where we talk about how medieval and medieval-inspired movies, TV, and books depict the medieval world. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? And what do they tell us about how modern people see the medieval past? I'm Sarah Ifft, a medieval historian, and today I'll be talking about Dragonheart with guests Mary Galvin and Sally Whiting. Hi.
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 Thank you both for coming on, and do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah. So she's an artist, I'm a writer, and we're in business together. We collaborate on different projects.
Cool. What kind of stuff do you do?
Well, at the moment Mary is writing, she has written poetry that we're combining into a book, and I'm doing illustrations for them.
Cool. Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And why were you especially excited about talking about this particular movie, which you recommended to me? I actually had not seen it before.
I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I remember loving parts of it and being emotional at the event at the end, but also remembering, I don't think the acting was very good. So I had to see it again.
And the first thing I thought of when thinking of medieval movies was this movie, because I watched it a lot when I was a child.
Yeah, no, I definitely missed it. It has a weirdly star-studded cast for a movie that, as you said, the acting is not amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
But so it's Dennis Quaid as Bowen, Sean Connery as the voice of Draco, the dragon, David Thewlis, Remus Lupin as Einan, Pete Postlethwaite as Brother Gilbert, Jason Isaacs as Lord Felton. I really liked the Remus Lupin having Lucius Malfoy as his sidekick was an interesting twist that has been...
I didn't even catch that. They look so different.
That was the first thing I thought. I don't know, it's maybe because Jason Isaacs in this actually doesn't look that different from the movie I first saw him in, which was The Patriot.
Oh, okay.
Which was very much, I think, the beginning of him making a name for himself as being cast as just horrifically evil people.
He's pretty good at it.
Yeah, and I read this interview with him a while back where he was basically people come up on the street to me and tell me they hate me.
Oh no.
And he's, as far as I know, a very nice man.
It seems like you kind of hear that a lot. Someone who plays bad guys a lot is usually pretty nice. And then a lot of people who play good guys and are stars might not be so nice.
Right. Yeah. I think actually the kid who plays Joffrey quit acting because just the extent to which everybody thinks of him as this sadistic creep was sort of wearing on him.
Oh no.
That sucks.
Which is really sad.
Yeah.
People can't be that. How do you compare an actor to their character they play and think that that's the same person?
Right. It's just so odd that people have this weird inability to divorce the person they are on screen from the person that they are in real life.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. Yes, but also has Julie Christie as Queen Ashlyn?
Was it Aislinn?
Aislinn?
I feel like they pronounced it Aislinn because I know in
they do.
In Irish that's not how you pronounce it.
In Irish, I think it's something like Ashlyn, although I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And then Dina Meyer as Kara, and John Gielgud is uncredited, but is the voice of King Arthur, who will appear briefly.
Yeah.
So the first section, the enumeratio, is where I'll give a kind of brief orienting summary of the plot, and then we'll kind of just go through things that we noticed about the film and just kind of have a general discussion. So for the brief recap, the knight Bowen is mentoring Prince Einan when he is then mortally wounded in the same battle that kills his father. In order to save the prince, Bowen and Queen Ashlyn take Einan to a dragon who grants him half his heart. Einan turns out to be the worst, and Bowen blames the dragon's heart for corrupting him. He ditches Einan and becomes a dragon slayer in revenge. After he's killed all but one dragon, the very last suggests that they team up and stage dragon killings for money. They are joined by Brother Gilbert, a monk who is very into King Arthur, and Kara, a peasant woman who seeks vengeance against Einon for the death of her father. Draco, the dragon, reveals that he is in fact the dragon who gave Einon his heart, and that the problem wasn't the heart, it was definitely Einon. After a vision of King Arthur, Bowen agrees to lead a rebellion against Einon. They successfully lead the villagers in an uprising, but ultimately can only defeat Einon by killing the dragon, the other half of his heart. Draco becomes a star, and Bowen and Kara apparently invent socialist democracy, which is great in the 10th century.
Yeah. It ends like, even how they say it was basically Camelot. And when, like, for the time that they ruled, it was the Golden Age. I was like, it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was also like, wait, so who's ruling? Like, are they ruling now? Like, did they get elected?
I guess just because they led the rebellion.
Right, like, there's no actual explanation or discussion. Like, it really makes it sound like they've just, like, invented democracy now or something.
Yeah, it doesn't really. It was a weird movie. I love it.
I mean, there's a lot of things that didn't make sense.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid's accent, by the way, being one of them. Oh my god, it's so bad.
What was it supposed to be? At some points, it sounded Irish.
Trying to make his voice deeper, I think.
Yeah, no, I assume he was trying for British, but only like 60% of the time and not well.
No.
Right.
Yeah. Like, every now and then you'd hear a word. It was like, what is that? Like a twang. There were a few twangs in there. I was like, oh, it's Midwestern almost. Like, yeah, I don't know. He didn't know what he was
bad.
Yeah.
So it starts with he's training Einon, and the movie's like clearly trying to make us think that like Bowen's interpretation eventually of his whole situation, that like Einon was this good kid who got corrupted by the dragon's heart, is a valid interpretation. There is nothing about that you ever see of Einon that would lead you to that interpretation.
Yeah, no, the exact opposite. No. And it's like, when they're sparring, I think is the word, when they're sparring and he is, saying all this stuff that sounds like he's supposed to be inspiring, but the kid is like clearly not enjoying it. Never a smile or anything.
The most engaged we see Einon is that at some point there's like some peasant revolt and Einon's dad gets killed, and Einon's basically like thrilled about this and is like hurry up and die already or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
He's trying to take the crown off his head while he's laying there unconscious, and he wakes up, and then the Einon's just like, die, it's mine.
Which also like raises the possibility, like if Einon instead had been like, oh dad, let me bring you back to the castle, like maybe he would have been fine.
Yeah.
Maybe?
I don't really understand. That whole attack scene was weird. Like they're attacking him, but it just sounded like they were fake beating on him and then just left him. I was like, hold on.
Right.
The fight's out there. I was like, hold on, you have the king here. Like, what, you're not going to make sure he's dead?
The king also just like rides into the village, and it's sort of unclear why he's like over there in the first place. It's very odd.
No, I don't. He's taking like a thrill out of burning their houses and stuff.
Yeah.
A king wouldn't be in the battle anyway, would he?
He could have been. I mean, he could have been at least like ostensibly leading the troops, which means he should be like near the troops at least.
Yeah.
I mean, which also might mean he's kind of like in the back, but like there certainly were kings who like actually fought.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. With their crown on top of
that
their
was
helmet.
So
though?
weird. What is the deal with that crown? What is it made out of?
Yeah, no, it's bizarre that it is. He just like kind of like has like his regular crown on top of his helmet. Like they probably would wear something that they would be like recognizable. Like they have like this is like the king's fancy armor, and do you like know that's the king's armor?
Yeah.
Like it would be considered bad form to hide too much, but it's still like it's very odd that it's just like his regular crown.
I mean, what if he was knocked off his horse and his crown went flying?
Right. Like, how is the crown staying on? Like, does it like have like little like prongs at the bottom that it like fits into the armor?
I would love to see that.
while Einan is standing there, like, ripping the crown from his father's, like, not quite cold dead hands, a peasant woman shows up and shoots him with an arrow and wounds him. And he is bleeding with blood that looks so much like fruit punch.
Yes. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, that's not blood. There's no way.
Which is the beginning of, like, the budget for this movie. Looks like it was like $17.
Yeah. It's
so bad.
It's hilarious. I can't believe like all the big names that are attached to it, and like how low budget and nonsensical a lot of the like set pieces and stuff and their clothes made very little sense to me.
No.
It is from 1996.
True.
Though.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
that
fair.
definitely explains part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also even just like the props. So like his mother is being kind of vaguely identified as being like a witch or an adherent of the old ways or whatever they're kind of using to describe it. And the way that this is indicated is that she has this like collection of dragon figurines which look like things that are like purchased out of like a touristy shop, like a like faux Asian touristy shop on Canal Street in New York.
Yes. There's this shop in the mall near me that it's like this fake Chinese shop. They have kimonos and stuff that aren't even from China and dragons that look just like those ones that were in the movie. Exactly like them. Made out of plastic.
Yeah, and it's like you couldn't have done a little better.
Yeah, she had like a potion bottle, and when we first watched it again, and she was looking at the potion, it looked like she was looking at that, and I was like, what? I don't remember there being like a super potion involved. It's like, oh no, it's the golden figurines. Oh, those are meaningful, I guess.
They don't even explain how she knows about the dragons or anything. Like, they don't have any connection besides from her taking them to the cave.
No,
yeah, she says like she's from the old ways, like Celts or something, and they respected them, and that's about all we get.
Yeah, and there's this weird half-hearted effort, which I'll talk about later. It sort of presents the country as being in this like moment of, I guess, like very recent Christianization, or like in the transition to Christianization, I guess, but also nobody's really very Christian, including the monk.
Yeah, I don't...
No.
It doesn't really make any sense. I put it, like, one of my notes was like, is this Christianity around? Like, what's the attitude towards her and dragons? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, no, it's bizarre. And and I'll talk about that a little bit, especially because this movie, for a movie that seems to be set in no time at all, makes the bizarre choice that it actually very precisely locates us in time. That it says it's like 984 AD.
Yeah, I saw that
on a title card at some point.
Yeah, I meant to look that up to be like what was around back then, but I didn't get around to it.
Well, I'll chat about that some in a later section.
Good.
Perfect.
So they go to see the dragon. Another evidence of their very low special effects budget is that, given that it's in the 90s, I don't care that it's not good CGI. What I find hysterical is that most of the time they don't even do CGI. They just creatively avoid showing the dragon.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, you hear his voice and, like, you see a shadow, but, like, you don't see the actual dragon because that costs money.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine what it would have cost back then, too, especially.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just, like, very funny, all of these scenes where it's just, like, very obviously, it's like, we don't want to show the dragon too much.
Yeah.
But when they do show the dragon, it might be bad CGI, but his facial expressions are done very well.
Yeah, like, for the 90s, I actually don't think the CGI when it's there is that awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That was pretty good.
They tend to, like, avoid using it in some interesting ways.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the names that were in this? Like Brock. What's Brock about? Where's that come from?
They're ridiculous.
Brock and Kara. Bowen.
Brock just sounds like some kind of frat
Yeah.
boy.
Yes.
Which is his overall vibe.
He's
To be fair,
Oh, I
is
meant
a,
to look
is a
up.
like slightly overgrown American frat boy.
yeah. I think he played a lot of villains like in the 90s too.
Yeah. I envision him as like villains and dads.
I am having a very hard time imagining him as a father. I'm sure he's a fine one.
Right.
He's in The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan.
Really? He's the
Yeah.
dad?
Yeah.
Wait.
I'm pretty
No,
sure
you're
it's him.
talking about Bowen. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was talking about Brock, like the big dude that's like a bad guy from the start.
Yeah, sorry, that guy. I forgot about him.
Yeah. No, Dennis Quaid definitely plays the dad well.
Yes. But I feel like he also did like smarmy roles. Yeah, Brock, I'm not sure if I've seen him in anything.
I know I've seen him and stuff. I can't remember if he was one of the guys that played an alien in like the X-Files or another guy that looks just like him. But I know I've seen him before. But he's one of those actors that's kind of pops up in these small roles every now and then.
Yeah. But yeah, and like Einen as a name is like nothing.
Yeah, they just everyone in the staff, what is the word? The crew, threw a name into the hat, and then they just kind of ruffled around in there and picked him out. All right, Kara, who put Kara in here? Who put Brock in here? This isn't, what is it, Pokemon? There's a Brock. That's immediately who I thought of, but he's nothing like him.
Right, no, they were just like such a weird choices and like such a like weird combination of like very fantasy names and then very like just weird like modern but like not that common kind of name. It was like just an odd choice.
Yeah, there's a lot of odd choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the dragon's initially not willing to help because basically Einen's father sucked and he assumes that Einen also sucks. Basically Bowen and Iceland like insist like no, he's not terrible like his father, which I don't know why they have that impression.
Yeah. They definitely didn't give us any indication that he could possibly be a good person.
No,
there's never once where he's a good
No.
person.
like he's at best a mediocre person.
Yeah. That was my first impression of him. I was like, he's just getting his ass kicked.
Right.
he's not even, his heart isn't even in it. He does get embarrassed at one point and clearly has like a look of evil in his eyes, but other than that.
Yeah. The dragon eventually agrees to help him, but only if he swears an oath to, I guess, not suck, basically, which he breaks in like 2 minutes.
Yes! What is the deal with that oath? I was like, is this a binding oath? No, it's not. Apparently, it doesn't matter. What was the oath even for?
It was like a pink.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything.
The one thing I will say is that like it certainly is like a culture where like many people respected oaths and took them seriously, but like not him apparently. So
Yeah.
Oh, of course not.
yeah, he very quickly orders the rebuilding of the quote Roman fortress, which I will discuss later because that's the least Roman shit I've ever seen.
Okay.
The father that Dennis Quaid saved, that was going to work on the fortress, or he did work on it, and somehow he survived 12 years doing that kind of like back-breaking work. It's like,
Right.
what are you drinking?
Right.
I'll take some of that.
You're like the peasants are surprisingly like hardy and unmalnourished,
Yeah.
given that he's clearly like horribly exploiting them. And he's also like very sadistic about it. Like I think very quickly already he like I didn't write down exactly what it was, but he like I don't know put somebody's eye out or something for no good reason.
Yes. Yeah. Were they the ones that like led the rebellion?
I guess.
I think.
It was Kara's father.
Yeah, one of them was Kara's father. Yeah.
He was the one that got blinded because death is a release, not a punishment.
Yeah. He wants you to survive and suffer.
Bowen once again, based on nothing, assumes that he's only evil now because the dragon's heart has corrupted him and goes off to kill dragons for fun.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid. That was one of the things that, like, immediately I was on the dragon side. I was like, Bowen is an asshole. Like, why are you going to kill the dragons? It's not their fault.
Right.
To be fair, you'd be on any animal's side, no matter what.
Well, humans, they could
Default
be.
is definitely also that animals are better than people.
Yes. Thank you.
Usually.
Because animals generally aren't, like, sadistic or anything,
Right. Yeah, so he's just, like, terrible and, like, murdering a bunch of dragons for no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically skip forward to, like, he has exterminated the race. He has committed dragon genocide.
Mm-hmm. And it's no big deal.
He's our hero.
He's like, the dragon is so wise and, like, chill with him. And I remember him, like, I was not chill with him.
Right? But he goes pretty quick from, like, you are terrible to, like, let's be friends now, even though you've exterminated my species.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So he kills this dragon and then gains his adherent, the monk Brother Gilbert, who has a donkey named Merlin, because he really likes King Arthur. Also has this, like, scallop shell, which I'll talk about the significance of that as a symbol and how it fits very awkwardly here. But otherwise, this guy is a monk, but he only seems to be interested in, like, King Arthur.
Yeah. He really likes stories and heroes. It's like, there's nothing about him that says religion.
No. That he kind of identifies himself as a monk, and he's called Brother Gilbert, but he never says anything about, like, the church or Christianity or Jesus.
No.
Like, he's just pretending.
Yeah.
He's like a weeb. He's just really, really into the monk lifestyle.
Except not the part of it that involves, like, staying in your monastery. Like basically, like, monks are the original, like, stay the fuck home. Especially in this period.
Right.
And he's just, like, wandering around. He's like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah.
And he turns into a big Bowen fan.
Like, real fast.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm gonna read songs about you.
Yeah, he meets him and that's it.
Yeah.
Following him around, writing stories about him.
Yeah.
Right.
When he's, like, singing a song and then goes, like, oh, I can't remember. Oh, that was good. Oh, I can't remember. What did I say? I was like, oh, I'm familiar with that feeling.
And I will say, he is by far the best acting. Like, that is by far the best acting in this movie, is that, like, Pete Postlethwaite, it's, like, a solid bumbling comedic role, and, like, he does a perfectly good job with what he is given.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fun to watch.
Yeah. He's the only person I think I can say that of, but...
Yeah. I was
entertained by the terribleness.
Yeah. Well, actually, I will say, Jason Isaacs is being, like, very campy, and, he's doing just fine. As, like, campy sidekick villain.
Yeah. And that voice, he definitely did a voice for it. Because he sounded a lot different than his other roles.
It's a weird, like, it seemed like they were sort of, like, half-heartedly trying to queer code him.
Oh, really? I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that his voice is, like, kind of, like, a little higher, and he has this almost, like, sort of, like, mincing quality in a couple of the scenes. So I think that's sort of what they were going for, is the, like, gay-coded villain thing that, Disney and everybody else does all the time.
Cool. Nice.
Great job.
Great.
Good job, guys. So, and he comes in because Bowen tries to basically, like, sell the dragon corpse to him, or, like, get him to pay him for having killed the dragon. And then ends up when he's basically like, oh, next thing you'll, like, tax the roads, and apparently then just to, like, accidentally invents the concept of a toll road.
Right.
Like, great, okay. The toll road was invented by Dennis Quaid. Okay. Einen murders Kara's father at this point for no real reason other than the fact that he didn't murder him before, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess he'd suffered a long life.
Yeah, he's like, well, I guess you're finally ready for the release of death.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and Brock is a falconer now.
Right. Brock is a falconer.
I was a little jealous.
Then we also have the, like, Einen, like, takes Kara to the castle for the uncomfortable, like, let's, like, have a woman basically be put under the threat of rape to show that this guy is bad.
Right.
So.
God.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was, especially in the 90s, I feel like the threat of rape was just kind of casually thrown around in movies and shows.
Yeah, it was like a humorous part of movies in a lot of them. Like they played it out to be funny in some movies. Not in this one, but in this one it was very brief to do anything with it. But
yeah. Mm-hmm. And in this one it's not funny, but it also is just completely gratuitous. Like, it's just an extra way of showing that, like, this guy is bad.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. There's no plot point to it.
Right. Because she ends up, like, they kind of talk for a little while, and he kind of threatens her, and then he's like, maybe I'll make you my queen. And it's like, what? Why does anything about that make any sense? And why would she believe him? And then she escapes.
Well, because she's the only
really
woman
doesn't...
in there that's the same age. She's a romantic interest or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she's a woman who's not his mother.
Well, and he, it was like the second he noticed her, like, long flowing locks. And that was another thing at the beginning. She was like, bucket helmet girl. And she kills him, basically. And when she does, she takes off her helmet and her hair just goes in this nice, beautiful way. I was like, why did you even take off your helmet right now? It was like, here's your hair adding to your stress.
She just wants to take
and
off
somehow
the
it turned him on.
So she can watch him die.
She's getting really worried about hat hair. It's hard with curls.
Yeah.
That's her main concern in the middle of this battle is hat hair.
I think so, yeah. Well, I just killed the king is dead, and I just killed the next king, so I guess it's time to relax.
Yeah, great.
Time to make a L'Oreal commercial.
I have to let my hair out to invent socialist democracy now, which is my goal.
Right.
Bowen then goes to battle another dragon, and this fight ends in a stalemate where basically he's trapped in the dragon's mouth such that he could stab the dragon, but then in the head, but then the dragon would, have his teeth clamp down on him and kill him, or vice versa, essentially. So he's kind of stuck there.
It was a weirdly sexual.
Oh my god, he's sitting.
It is so
because he's
sexual.
on his tongue. Oh, I wrote something down, like a quote, specific quote from it, because it's just like, who wrote this? Like, that thought, can you get your buttocks off my tongue? I was just like, if you took away the picture of that, and then you put that quote in on another video, it would be at home there.
And that begins the, very awkward tone of this movie, where there is so much sexual tension with the dragon and Bowen and eventually also Kara.
Right.
And it's like, what were you going with here? Like, what was the goal?
It was very confusing.
I think it was supposed to show an emotional connection.
I guess it comes across pretty sexual, though.
Yeah, and I guess it's supposed to be just bonding, but it seems so flirtatious.
Yeah, they took it in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just very awkward that this movie is, totally implying that there's going to be this, dragon-human throuple that's gonna, happen at the end. And...
Some fan fiction is written somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
Clearly, it's gotta be, right? he is chatting with the dragon while they're doing all this. He clearly doesn't realize that it's the same dragon as before because he's the only person in the world who doesn't recognize Sean Connery's very distinctive voice.
Right.
And Gilbert's like narrating the whole battle as it's happening and trying to make it sound like more impressive than it is.
Yeah. He just really wants to be a bard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you got goals, my friend. I'm glad you got goals.
Oh, he's like Gabrielle and Xena, the warrior princess. I just want to write stories. Let me follow you and write stories about it.
Yeah, exactly. He just wants to write stories. Maybe he wants to be part of the throuple. I don't know.
He wants to be the groupie that follows them around and writes the book about them.
Right, yeah. So he's like trying to do that. It turns out that this is the last dragon, and basically as they're going through this whole thing, they end up coming to an agreement that to benefit them both, Bowen will, I guess, repeatedly pretend to kill him in order to make money.
Yeah, so the dragon keeps his life and Bowen makes money.
That was a really weird decision to me.
It really was.
It's like, I feel like I walked out of the room or something, but I didn't. I was there the whole time.
Like, it just doesn't make sense based on either of them and their personalities and their feelings about one another. It doesn't make sense as a decision that either of them would be willing to make.
No.
I agree. It was confusing. It's like, okay, I guess let's keep this story moving.
Right. Okay. Like, sure. All right. I just, like, I don't know. It would make more sense if, like, Bowen was less ideological about dragons, or if he, like, more quickly was like, oh, I've been mistaken. I don't know. But given how things go, it's basically just, like, they sort of agree to this, but it's like, why would either of them trust each other?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very out of character for characters that don't really have personalities anyway.
Right, yeah. It's like we know one thing about each of these characters, and it makes this one other thing make zero sense.
Right.
Just like the rest of the movie.
Yeah. They fake this dragon slaying, which they do not do a good job, and I'm not sure to what extent that's like the movie doing a bad job and to what extent it's like supposed to be, but like look bad.
It's hard to tell, yeah.
I feel like they tried to make it really simple for kids to understand. Like, it's a weird mix of a serious movie and a children's comedy.
Yes, like the tone just veers wildly back and forth. It's really odd. And then also part of that is that this starts this like weird beginning of like, let's have discussions about like ethics under capitalism. Because the dragon starts talking, he's like, oh, you know, so like when you squeeze the nobility, it's actually the peasants who feel the pinch. And so it's like, oh, okay, are you just explaining economics? Is that what you're here for?
Well, apparently he's a really dumb knight who doesn't understand how things work, which is crazy because as a knight, he definitely would. Right.
But yeah, but I will say like the dragon who's like kind of like wants to die and also he's like real anti-capitalist. I feel like he's like a real like proto-millennial. Like it's maybe he was like very influential on like 90s kids.
Yeah. The very first one was
the very first one. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Einen's a dick to his mom, who then frees Kara and says something to him like, I don't want you to have to suffer my fate, by which I guess she means being married to terrible men or something.
Either that or else she was kidnapped and forced to be the queen too.
Yeah.
Maybe?
That's how I took it.
All we know about her husband is that he also sucked, so...
Yeah, and when he died, she gave 0 shits.
Yeah.
Right. She was like, cool.
He was Yeah.
Yeah. And,
thank God.
You know, Julie Christie does have a very good, like, I'm very disappointed in you face. You know, she's also somebody who, like, her acting is perfectly adequate, at least.
Right. I feel like the disappointed face is the face that she has throughout the whole movie, though.
Yep.
True. But, like, that's probably what they told her to do. Like, they were essentially basically, like, look, like, depressed about your
She only has one face.
Yeah.
So Bowen then at this point finally names the dragon so he can stop calling him dragon, and then calls him Draco, which means dragon in the scholar's speech.
Yeah.
So dragon makes a comment about that, but then we go with it.
That's a nice way to get around.
And now we know where Lucius Malfoy got the name for his son.
Yes! Mary has never read Harry Potter. She doesn't know what's going on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I knew that. I recognize those names. And I think they're both bad guys. That's really where my knowledge
Lucius
ends.
Malfoy's the dad bad guy. And Draco is his dick son. So the Einen and whatever his dad's name is.
Yeah.
So kind of like these guys, really.
Kara goes back to her village, who are just terrible, apparently. Immediately, Bowen shows up and he's like, oh, there's a dragon. And they're like, cool, let me offer this, woman as a maiden sacrifice to the dragon.
Right.
Yeah. I was kind of confused because of the way that they acted, and how many, it seemed like they just kept going back to the same village. And because they were like, this is my village. I was like, what? How? Are you from everywhere? What's going on?
Draco, I guess, collects her, but then they make friends. And again, there is so much dragon flirtation in this scene. And she's giggling. It's just so weird.
It is very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my dad, this last time I watched it today, my dad watched part of it with me, and I was there's so many, the sexual points is you could tell he was just trying to pretend that he didn't think of it that way. And then finally I was that when they're in Camelon, they're in those pillars. I was like, those look like dicks. And he was like, yep, that's exactly my first thought.
The circle of pillar dicks. Yeah.
When I was in Ireland with my parents a few years ago and saw this thing and definitely immediately made a joke about how oh, that's definitely a 5th century BCE dildo. And my mother was like, that's very inappropriate. I'm sure it's an important ritual object. And then I read the sign and I'm like, yeah, it's an important, explicitly phallic ritual object. So I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Bowen's about to foe kill the dragon, and then Einen shows up and confronts him, and of course does the villain thing where he's like, I am going to get off my horse to fight you myself because I want to fight you, and of course I have to do it, and I can't give it to an underling. I have to do it myself. And then also literally confesses, oh no, I've always been evil.
Yeah. Explaining how he hated all of the stuff that Bowen taught him when he was a child.
Yeah. I just told you what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. And
I don't think Einen's ever loved anyone.
I mean, it's very much this classic dumb thing that villains do is that they basically have this confession thing where they're like, no, I'm gonna tell you all about who I really am and make sure that you don't have any misapprehensions about me and my level of evilness.
Right. I want you to know how much of an asshole I am before I kill you.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
He also is actually pretty solid at fighting, and I don't buy that either.
Yeah, he's not coded as a warrior, so to speak.
Right. I mean, he
any
was
point.
I mean, it's also he just was very mediocre when Bowen was training him, and also didn't really seem to care. And then it's wait, but and who even trained him after that? Because Bowen left.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And nobody else seems to be that good.
It's got to be Brock.
Brock seems like a person who's brawn over skill.
It is a weird kingdom, absolutely.
Right.
And his falcon.
Yeah, so it's just this odd, okay, apparently you're great at fighting now because that's what the plot requires.
Well, that's most action movies.
True.
Yeah. This whole movie is like that. And now the dragon and Bowen are best friends, even though Bowen committed genocide on his whole race.
We need the plot to go this way,
Totally
so we're gonna have them think like this, even though it makes no sense.
Right. And, like, Bowen's really concerned because I guess, like, he wounds Einan and that hurts the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of confused by that. Like, it doesn't seem like it happens like that, like, at the end. Like, he gets hurt and killed and, like, nothing even happens to the dragon at all. But then he comes back, like, it doesn't really kill him. So it's like, I don't get it. Is he absorbing the pain? And if he is, why isn't he showing it anymore?
The dragon, Draco, explains that at one point. He says that he's the main part of it. So for Einan to die, you have to kill the dragon.
And when Einan gets stabbed, it, like, hurts the dragon, but it doesn't kill the dragon. It just, like, very briefly disables him. Right.
Yeah.
Which is, like, a weird setup.
The whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. Somewhere deep inside this story is a good story.
Yes. I think there could have been a good version of this movie. I don't think we got it, but I think there could have been a good version of this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and maybe it got better, because there's, like, 6 of those.
Oh, like sequels to this?
Oh, God, really?
There's more. There's more Dragonheart movies, and there's like 5 or 6, and I've never seen any of the other ones, so I don't know if it's gotten better or if it was worse.
I kind of want to watch them now.
They're all on Netflix.
Perfect.
Did they keep Sean Connery, or do they lose him at some point?
I think it's different people. I don't know. I don't think it's the same dragon either. Like.
Oh, right, true. It wouldn't be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. He does die. Yeah. Kind of forgot briefly.
Yeah.
I cried when he died.
I know. That was genuinely sad.
It was. Yeah. I was like, oh, you're the only good thing here.
You know, he's very charming. Like, I get why they're both like, why Kara and Bowen are both like on board with his flirtation.
Yeah.
Dragon's got a good personality.
Yeah. Charismatic.
So they go to this village of, like, creepy people who immediately give the vibe of, like, we have definitely eaten people before.
Yeah.
Kara tries to out them as scam artists, and of course they don't believe her because nobody believes women in any century. And, yeah. But then I guess he, like, shoots down the dragon and they try to eat it, and he has to stop them. They attack, and Bowen has to, like, rescue Kara and Gilbert, who's popped up again, and they all have to, like, run away so these people don't, like, literally eat them.
It was kind of like watching something out of Monty Python, because they literally start yelling, meat, meat, meat. What is happening?
That's definitely the vibe, yeah. It's very Monty Python-esque, but, like, less good.
Yeah, definitely.
So they end up going to Avalon, the birthplace of King Arthur, or the burial place of King Arthur, where Draco confesses that who he is. He explains how dragon religion works. Apparently there's, like, dragon heaven and hell and, like, a dragon god, I guess?
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, so you have to do something, like, crazy good, and then you can be a star. Otherwise, you're done. Literally, you're gone forever. And that's part of what motivated him to, like, help the kid, Einan, like, come back to life, because he thought he could save him and also save, like, the land, basically, and all those people. It's like, hold on a sec. I feel like he moved pretty fast from that to something else, and I was just like, you just admitted, like, to having ulterior motives.
Right. And also, I guess that's, like, why he's working with Bowen in the first place, but, like, I'm not sure that the dragon god is gonna be on board with him teaming up with the guy who exterminated all the dragons.
Well, apparently it worked.
Good point. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, apparently, but it's like, but why though?
Gods are fickle, I guess.
Right. Bowen ends up having this vision of King Arthur, and then based on this vision, he, I guess, completely changes his mind about everything and decides that he is going to lead a rebellion against Einan.
That's all it takes. Inside circle of dicks.
Yeah, the circle of dicks. The circle of dicks changes you.
That's for sure.
They go out, they go and like find the villagers, and after some like super half-hearted speech and like Bowen sort of like waving from the background, convince all of them to rebel against Einan, because I guess that's all it takes.
Yeah, because the dragon showed up, and I got flashbacks to Game of Thrones. I was like, oh, just because you have a dragon does not mean you're gonna win. That dragon can die.
Dragons do not guarantee victory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They teach everybody how to fight, like, surprisingly well, given that it seems it to be, like, an hour.
Right. It's just a couple hours.
Goes by pretty fast for a battle.
Yeah, then, like, it goes super fast for our, like, pitched battle of our, like, ground up, like, communist rebellion against the monarchy.
Apparently they didn't have... Well, I guess they had lords. It was just, like, 4 of them or something.
Right. I mean, well, there's Bowen, and was there somebody else who was like supposed to be like upper class? I can't remember.
Jason Isaac's character and Brock, I think both were mentioned as like being like higher in the social strata.
Right, but they're fighting against them, so.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I thought we were talking about.
Right. Yeah. And so just in general, but it's like, so we basically like have all these peasants who just like with essentially this like one dude who's a knight decide like we are going to uprise against the entire royalty and nobility.
Yep.
That's how it works.
One white man to save the day.
Thank God for white men.
Yeah. Did you guys think of Braveheart at all when you were watching this?
Yeah. It definitely had like very similar like that vibe.
At times I was like, oh, maybe this is just a parody of that movie, but it only came out a year before. Braveheart was 95, so considering how long movies take to be made, they were probably just bad timing.
I will say by the end of this, I would not have minded if Dennis Quaid came to a similar end to Mel Gibson in Braveheart. I'm just going to say.
Yeah. I think that would have been okay. His character I was never a big fan of.
No.
Well, if you think about, like, he doesn't... I guess maybe that's his redemption, was, like, saving the kingdom, but...
Right.
I just feel like he should have sacrificed himself.
Right. Like, why does the dragon have to be the one to sacrifice himself?
Yeah.
So this pitched battle in the woods, Brother Gilbert at some point wounds Einan, and then the dragon, I guess, is like, again, sort of temporarily injured by this and falls and is then captured.
Yeah, surprisingly, Brother Gilbert is an amazing shot with an arrow. Right?
After his hour of training.
His first shot was right in the head of that prop.
Right. Like, why? Why are you good at this? This makes no sense.
No, none at all.
It's just natural. God guided his arrow.
Oh my god.
God / King Arthur.
Yeah. Can't forget the other white guy.
Right. Yep. The white guys are not appearing in this film. So the dragon gets captured and Iceland goes to kill her son, whom she describes as a creature not worth saving, which is like real, like if your mom says that, like, oof.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've really messed up.
She took a turn with him.
Yeah. And Einan kills her because, of course, he does.
Mm-hmm. Well, because she brought those dragon slayers. And she was like, look, son, I love you so much. I brought these for you. It's like she's still hoping the dragon gets killed so he can die. It's like, so you're trying to assassinate your son on the DL.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the dragon slayers are, like, costume-wise coded as kind of, like, Asian, but also are definitely all white men.
Yeah, it was weird. They were all speaking these, like, weird, different languages.
Yeah. It's like, which I'm pretty sure are like not real languages that anyone is
No.
speaking. It's awkward.
The subtitles just said speaking a different
No.
language.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great.
Cool.
But yeah.
Yeah, and their helmets.
They also looked like they were just pretending to be dragon slayers. They looked like they were in costume. Like, their costumes looked like they were in costume.
I kind of wonder, and I didn't look them up, but I kind of wonder if they're not like actual actors, but like they decided really last minute, like, fuck, we want to bring in these dragon slayers into the movie, and like literally pulled people off the street and like said, like, just wear this and stand there.
Maybe.
Yeah. Just yell some gibberish.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like it's not like it's like nothing about them either adds anything really or like makes sense.
No.
Yeah, no. They don't really serve a purpose in the story except basically to get the mom killed.
Right, yeah. And like she could have just tried to kill the dragon herself because that's what she does too. Like it's not even like she like takes a spear from one of them.
Yeah, she doesn't even let them do their supposed job.
Right, like they do not need to be in this movie.
No.
So the battle rages on. We see Kara. I was really hopeful that she was about to kill Felton, but then they have to like have a man come in and save her because of course they do.
Yes.
Almost every time she's in
so
the scene,
stupid.
it's because she has to have someone save her or something.
Right, and it's just very frustrating that like they're half-heartedly trying to have her be this like rah-rah, like it's like a woman and she's fighting, but also she always needs a man to rescue her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She can never get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just feels very much like they're like trying to like have their cake and eat it too with like, no, look, we have a strong female character, but also she will be damseled every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Draco explains to Bowen finally that he has to kill him in order to defeat Einon. Bowen doesn't want to because they're friends, and then basically like does so finally out of desperation, and Einon dies. And this apparently is sufficient for Draco to get to go to Dragon Heaven and become a star. And we, I guess, then end the monarchy in England in the 10th century.
Yep.
Yep.
Pretty much sums everything up.
Sounds right to me.
He just kind of disappears into glowing smoke and then turns into stars, which I don't understand how that's supposed to happen.
Right, and I guess they also kind of stole that from like The Lion King.
Yes! That's what it reminded me of. Okay, I didn't even think about that. I knew it reminded me of something.
Yeah, that just occurred to me, that it's the same as The Lion King.
Wow.
Mustafa!
And also now, the entire species, based on what we know in this movie, the entire species is extinct.
Yes. So if the sequels
I don't know how they have sequels.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just thinking. Like, was there a secret dragon egg hidden somewhere that they adopted and hatched?
Right.
Do dragons need another dragon to reproduce?
I don't know.
But, I mean, if there's already a fertilized egg hidden somewhere.
Right. And I believe the previous dragon that Bowen killed was referred to as she.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. The scarred one. It's good. I like that name.
Yeah.
The scarred one.
I was weirdly into scars growing up. I think it's Final Fantasy VIII's fault. I don't know if either of you ever played that, but
I have not.
Yeah, I have not either. But assuming that, like, I don't know, dragons have some kind of like heterosexual reproduction system, I guess, like, it stands to reason that they could have like gotten a fertilized egg going before they were both killed.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really want to watch the sequels now because I want to see how that plays out.
I know.
No, I'm curious.
I do too.
At this point in the next section, the Vera et Falso, I talk about essentially what this movie got right and what it got wrong. To some extent, it's clearly fantasy, and it's like, the dragon times, and it's not real, and they can do whatever they want. But they also make some, like, truly bizarre choices at, like, gestures at historical reality that almost none of them work. I think maybe none of them work. So it's odd. And the first of that is like this choice that I mentioned earlier, that they set it very precisely in time, that they're like, oh, this is the year 984 AD. Like, just so everyone is aware of exactly what year it is.
Yeah, like anyone's gonna recognize that for anything.
Right. Unless you're a medieval
audience.
Historian, in which case,
Right.
like, yeah, I mean, you, like, I'm going to, like, mention, like, some things that are actually going on in 984 AD. I did not know them all offhand, but, like, I, at the very least, like, knew vaguely, like, okay, like, there are real things that are happening in, like, late 10th century England, which are, like, not consonant with what's happening in this movie. There's, like, a real person who would have been king during this moment. Athelred II the Unready, which actually means poorly advised in Old English.
Oh.
And they had some, like, real non-dragon related problems. In particular, this was a moment where various kind of Scandinavian raids picked up, and England is, the English are, like, pretty substantially militarily defeated by the Danes and end up having to pay tribute to them. So they've got, like, actual problems, which are not in this movie.
No.
Nope, not a one.
They also, like, did not overthrow the monarchy. And then, like, my mind immediately went to, like, okay, so is the implication based on this movie that, like, the Norman conquest in 1066 is also, like, the conquest of this, like, social, like, anarcho-socialist commune that then gets, like, brought under a Norman monarchy? Like, that's definitely what I'm, like, thinking as I'm watching this. I acknowledge most people aren't, but I was. And then there's also this, like, awkward place of Christianity that it, like, is kind of, like, referring to, like, the old ways or the old religion, and it implies that we're in this, like, pre-Christian period, but in reality, what is now England had been, like, very thoroughly Christianized by basically the end of the 7th century. And this is, like, a few hundred years later. And so it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So his mom would be, like, burned for being a witch or something, or stuck in a tower somewhere, basically.
Or, like, I mean, so like, witch persecution is actually an early modern phenomenon rather than a medieval one, is my big thing that I actually talk about on this podcast.
Okay.
But she certainly couldn't have gotten away with being, like, a pagan. Like, she would have had to, like, for appearance's sake, been, like, publicly Christian, at least. And, like, this is even late enough that, like, there's not a lot of, like, secret pagans hiding around in England, I don't think.
Cool.
Well, it's very obvious that the people who wrote this did not seek any kind of outside help on...
Oh, no.
on the time period.
Oh, no. Like, they did not do anything. There's also, like, so there's this castle at the beginning that, so my immediate, like, look at this castle is that I'm, like, laughing at this castle because it's like, oh, okay, so we have, like, a 12th century castle that's already in ruins in the 10th century, which is, like, a thing that you see kind of a lot in medieval films, that you have, like, ruined castles that are clearly medieval castles, and it's like, how'd they get ruined already?
By a dragon.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously.
Dragon stomped on them.
And this particular one, so they, like, get around that by, like, describing it as a Roman fortress. This is the least Roman shit I've ever seen. Like, it looks like a Norman castle.
Yeah. Yeah, none of that has any kind of Roman architecture to it at all.
No. Like, it looks very specifically, actually, from what you can see of it, like, it totally looks like the castles built by the Normans who come into England 80 years after this movie. One thing that I will say they did technically get right is the word Draco does mean dragon in Latin. So, good job.
Congratulations.
Yep. Describing it as the scholar's speech is something of an oversimplification, because it's not only intellectual culture, but also it's, like, the language of law and administration and the church. But, it's a language that's, like, not his language, that is in fact the word for dragon. So, we'll take what we can get.
So is that the only thing they got right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That does not surprise me.
The, like, one other thing I will say that, like, okay, so, all right, so Brother Gilbert, I have a lot of thoughts about. First of all, he's this, like, very standard example in a lot of ways of what you see in medieval or medieval-inspired movies of, like, people who are supposed to be religious but, like, really aren't. So he's, like, a monk but seems to have zero interest in the church and, like, is way more into Arthur than Jesus. And by, like, ditching his monastery and wandering around, not to mention by, like, killing people, he's, like, breaking monastic vows, and he also doesn't seem to care about that.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will note is that there is an interesting touch that he is wearing a scallop shell. And this is the symbol of St. James and is typically associated with pilgrimage to his supposed burial place at Santiago de Compostela. And I will say, the shell was typically given to pilgrims as early as the 9th century. So, okay. On the other hand,
There you go.
yeah. On the other hand, there are not actually any English pilgrims recorded, at least, as having made the journey to Santiago de Compostela, which is in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula, until the 11th century. So,
Oh.
Well, that's what, because he got held up.
Right.
he's about the same time as the Norman castle. Like, it all really works together. So yeah, it also, there's like the bit where like Bowen like invents toll roads, and they're like, oh my god, like you could charge taxes on the roads. We've never thought of that before. Like they thought of that before. He did not invent toll roads. Like the Romans had toll roads. It's not a brand new thing.
It's actually old.
And then the other thing, finally, that I wanted to note that they couldn't even get this right because they made the choice to put it in the 10th century in particular, is that they have this, like, this kind of, like, half-hearted but still, like, kind of big interest in King Arthur. And the 10th century is arguably the low point of interest in King Arthur.
Really?
That he's mentioned in a couple of manuscripts. Yeah, so like if there were a historical Arthur, which isn't definite, like that would have been like the 5th, 6th century. And it's like enough after that it's not like, okay, we like just had King Arthur and like we know about him, which for a fantasy at least is like a legit choice. But also, like, he's mentioned in a couple of manuscripts from around this time, but nobody's really that interested in King Arthur until, like, the 11th and really 12th century. Like, a lot of the legends that we have about Arthur really date from the 12th century.
Okay.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, so this, like, bizarre choice to set us, like, very precisely in the year 984, I feel like makes it honestly more confusing for me.
Yeah.
It was just a weird choice.
Yeah.
Like, why?
That it, like, situates you very precisely in time, and then it's like, okay, so I know that everything is wrong. Thank you.
Especially when it's about
It made your job easy.
So none of it's really factual anyway, so why have it set in a specific time?
Right. Like, most fantasy, it just, like, has it in, like, it's kind of a pseudo-medieval universe, but it doesn't have, like, a specific year, or it's, like, a year that's clearly not, like, the calendar of, like, our universe or something.
Right.
And they just kind of go with that, and it's this, like, weird choice to, like, let me, like, pick this precise time and place to set it in, but not draw on that at all. You just, like, picked a year at random.
Is it, like, really bad magical realism?
Right.
You know, it's a genre.
Yeah, and, like, I've read definitely, like, magical realism that, like, has the, like, I don't know, the, like, you know, it's, like, the year, like, 1300, like, butt dragons are real, but, like, it draws on real things that we actually know about 1300 or whatever the time is, like, in ways that are interesting. Mm-hmm. And this, like, does not do that. Like, the fact that this is the year that they chose does not, like, inform anything about the movie.
Nope.
So it's, just it's very much like, why have it at all if it's not there for anything?
Yeah, because general audiences wouldn't know anything about it to have it even mean anything to them. So,
right.
Yeah, none of it makes sense.
Yeah, so it like doesn't do anything useful to like contextualize anything. So that was a choice. There are a lot of choices.
That was a choice.
I also then wanted to take a little time talking about some like fun facts that just that could have made it into this movie and didn't about dragons for the Historia et Veritas section. So for the Historia et Veritas section, this is the segment where we talk about a real historical person, event, or phenomenon. And I wanted to talk about some of the realities of not dragons, obviously, but of how medieval people would have seen dragons or thought about dragons.
Cool.
The one thing I will say is that there is this kind of indication that dragons are not entirely positively thought of. And this does come from medieval sources, given that dragons are typically linked to the devil and who is seen as being, of course, the like worst and greatest of serpents.
That makes sense.
There are, however, a lot of like fun facts about dragons in medieval bestiaries, these books that essentially talk about like animals and what they're like and how they kind of are models for people in various ways. That they have all these fun facts about dragons that I think it would have been cool if they had made it into this movie, and they did not. I actually just wanted to read a bit from a manuscript in the British Library about what it has to say about dragons. The dragon is the greatest of all serpents, or of all living things upon the earth. The Greeks call it drakon, whence the Latin name is derived, so that it is called Draco. And this creature, often stealing forth from its caverns, mounts into the air, and the air is violently set in motion and glows around it. It is also crested and has a small mouth and narrow passages through which it draws its breath and thrusts out its tongue. Moreover, its strength lies not in its teeth, but in its tail, and it injures by a blow rather than by a bite. It is harmless as to poisons, but they say poisons are not needful to this creature for dealing death. Because if it has caught anyone in its coils, it kills him. So they kind of see dragons as more like boa constrictors, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And so then it adds that from which
cool.
not even the elephant is safe by the greatness of its body. For lurking about the paths by which the elephants are accustomed to go, it binds their legs in its coils and kills them by suffocation. Now they are bred in Ethiopia and in India, where it is so hot that there is heat upon the very mountaintop. So they also did think basically like they thought that dragons were potentially real, but they also like didn't really expect to see them. They were like, there's like these other countries over there where they have dragons and also elephants.
Oh.
Weird.
And then adds that to this dragon the devil is likened to as a most enormous serpent. As it often rushes forth from its cavern into the air and the air glows around it, so does the devil, raising himself from the depths of hell, transform himself into an angel of light, and deludes stupid people with the false hope of glory and human joy. As it is said to be crested, so is he himself the king of pride. It has power not in its teeth but in its tail, and so his power being lost, he deceives with a lie those whom he attracts to himself. It lies hid about the paths by which the elephants go, and so the devil always pursues men who are fond of display. It binds their legs with coils, and if it is able, entangles them, and so he entangles their road to heaven with the knots of sins, and it kills them by suffocation, and so if anyone dies entangled in the chain of sins, without doubt he is condemned to hell.
All right, then.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's got this like whole big connection to the devil, and one of the reasons dragons are so common in medieval art is because they're integrated into Christian mythology in this big way, which is obviously not in this movie at all.
No.
Which as I said, we even like have a monk and he seems to have no idea that Christianity exists. So, and there's more positive depictions of dragons as well. Like people use dragons on their coats of arms, and it's like to some extent it's a more kind of general, kind of positive image of like strength or cunning. But but in particular, we often see this like dragon as symbolic of the devil, basically, and also dragons apparently really hate elephants. Is like the big thing about dragons in medieval bestiaries. And there's a lot of...
Is it because they have long memories?
Right. And there's actually a lot of pictures, and I'll make sure to post one in the Media-eval Facebook group when this episode comes out. But there's like a lot of pictures in like from the Middle Ages of like dragons attacking elephants.
Really? I've never seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
I want to see it, and I don't.
Yeah.
I do have a question that's not directly related, but there's a lot of medieval paintings and drawings and stuff of monks fighting life-size snails, like human-sized snails, or the monks are miniature. What is up with that?
What?
I want to know.
So part of it is definitely just like there's this like very like quirky marginalia tradition, which actually has a lot of like vaguely sort of like semi-anthropomorphized like fighting animals. Mm-hmm. So like part of it is like there's like this whole tradition. There are actually a couple of relatively new articles that have come out that I actually have not read yet about like what the snails in particular are potentially supposed to symbolize in this context, and I don't actually know offhand. But my sense is essentially that like basically the idea is that like the images in the margins are supposed to then be kind of commentary potentially on things that are happening like in the main text or images, and that's where the snails often are. They're kind of in the margins, and they sometimes have like subversive functions. So I'm interested actually. Okay. I need to read some of the kind of new research and scholarship that's being done on the snails.
Yeah, I want to read some of that too, because I found it on Tumblr. Someone had commented saying that they thought it was monks being bored, so they were defeating the snails that were eating their gardens.
It's definitely part like the people who are like creating marginalia, like in part like you can clearly see like, you know, they're like having fun in a way that like maybe they're not with like the rest of their work to quite the same extent. Yeah. But it does often have like sort of like commentary function in interesting ways. And there's like a lot of really interesting work done in general about like how the marginalia is like commenting on things that are going on in the main text. So as I said, I'm really interested to read some of the kind of new stuff and new theories about what the snails in particular are doing. Because it's definitely one of these like cool examples of things where just like all of a sudden the internet at large discovered something about the Middle Ages.
Yeah. And none of my art history classes ever talk about it.
It sounds pretty interesting.
Right, yeah, because it's not, I mean, you know, you might do some like marginalia in art history classes. Honestly, I feel like the marginalia that art historians are more likely to have like thought of to show to students are the dirty marginalia.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a lot of dirty marginalia.
Yep.
I mean, one of my favorite medieval manuscript images actually is a nun picking penises off a tree.
I think...
What?
Like there's a tree that's growing penises, and a nun is like picking the penises off the tree.
I feel like I've seen that before.
Is it penis underneath?
Or like that, you know, like she doesn't like need a man for her sexual satisfaction.
She can just go to the tree.
Grows her own. Maybe it's the early version of those zucchini jokes I used to hear my mom say.
Right.
Oh god.
Yeah. So yeah, medieval manuscripts in general are like a treasure trove of like super fun, often like really weird shit.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty great. And there are, in particular, like there's a lot of like fighting animals, and like bestiaries have a lot of like weird animal images.
Very weird animal sexual images also.
Yeah. Like I think there's definitely like a rabbit with a sword and also a giant penis. Like I think I'm pretty sure that's like a thing I've seen.
I haven't seen any of this. I'm amazed and horrified.
There was
and
a
interested.
day that I sent you like a whole slew of texts of medieval drawings of weird shit. I remember that.
I don't. I must have blocked it out.
All right. So
I feel like also snails would be like really fun to draw. Like they're kind of spirally. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun.
Now I want to draw a snail.
Kind of soothing.
Yeah. I used to draw little like spirally like doodles. Like they weren't that good, but
I used to do
same
the
here.
spirally S.
I've been coloring in a coloring book. Like,
oh right, yeah. For the next section, I have us all come up with essentially an alternative movie we might make inspired by or instead of this one. Mine is actually, I'll just say first, because it is very much inspired by what I was just talking about, which is that the like weird medieval movie I kind of want to see is this movie that's like Alien versus Predator, but it's a dragon and a like and an elephant.
oh,
All right.
very interesting.
And it's just like
I'd
set in
watch it.
13th century England, and like unlike this movie, we'll actually draw in like what might actually be happening in the particular period, and like then thinking about like how would the people who are currently like in power and the people around them like respond to all of a sudden there's this like infestation of like, I don't know, maybe it's like a bunch of like dragons and elephants that are like battling it out in the towns of England, in the towns of medieval England.
It kind of makes me think of Godzilla and like all the monsters that Godzilla fights and stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically like a monster movie of like dragons and elephants, but it's just like set in 13th century England.
Like the giant elephants that are
Sounds
from
fun.
the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right,
kind of
yeah,
elephants.
like that ended like, yeah, like some, like maybe like some of those and some dragons, and they're like fighting it out.
That would be funny. So, Mary,
Yeah.
do you have any ideas for a
Yeah,
story?
Mary, go
Because
next.
I don't.
Why is it a perfect piece of art? You don't want to do anything to it.
I just can't. I don't know.
I might ramp up the magic
Yeah.
and some of the goofiness and just really commit
Yeah.
to it being a comedy.
Oh yeah, that would be
Yeah.
good.
But like a comedy of like tragedies.
Yeah.
That's what I would like. And Bowen should definitely die. But like doing something noble, he redeems himself. But so yeah, with that, I like the serpent kind of tail that you're talking about, that they strangle people with. So I'd probably throw that in.
Like some kind of constricting scene, like some kind of scene where people or animals or something gets constricted with the tail, like a boa constrictor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good scene.
I also, so he talked about when I was young and foolish, but you definitely get the idea that he was really old when he made that choice. Mm-hmm. So I would kind of do something like make him smaller or something, then you actually see a part of him, so you get an idea of his age, where he's at in maturity. So that it's more like you can really tell, oh yeah, he's like a young, dumb person who wants their glory and thinks that, they have the power to change the way someone is.
Yeah. And you could even have like a change in the voice. Like you could have somebody else who has like a younger sounding voice playing him when he's like little, and then have like the more like grizzled person when he gets older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, of course, Kara, well, I changed all the names because it just drove me crazy. Yeah. I was like, these names don't all come from the same place. So I would change the names and make them more accurate.
Yeah.
And yeah, Kara should definitely kick some ass and not be a permanent damsel in distress.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would definitely need to be changed.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be more women.
Yes.
Like, I remember when I first watched it with Mary, we were trying to count how many women were in it besides the Queen and Kara. And there's only one scene where there's several in the background, because there's a scene where they're getting ready to go fight the king and everything. And there's these women that are putting together weapons and stuff for the men. But that's the only time that I've seen any women in the background.
Yeah.
So this movie, it definitely does not pass the Bechdel test, because the only scene where we see Kara and Iceland talking to each other, they're talking on Einan. It actually does pass a test that I invented for this podcast, which is the like actual lowest bar of there has to be at least one named woman who doesn't die. And I have watched movies that do not pass.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
There are multiple medieval set films that do not pass.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of the reasons so many films don't pass the Bechdel test and don't even pass my really lowest possible bar test is because like there just aren't enough female characters in any of these movies.
Yep, there's even now like modern movies, you know, it's finally changing a little, but you can still get a few movies that are like, wait, there's no women here. Like, is this like just a men's club that they're taking to space? Like, where are the women at?
Women don't exist.
And like, why couldn't the dragon have been a woman? Like, we have a reference to a woman dragon.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, it's true.
The scarred one could have been the hero.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I just really like the name. I'm like weirdly attached to her now.
Yeah. Like, she's the real badass. Like, I want her movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe that's what one of the other movies is about.
Maybe.
That's true.
That would be nice.
I feel like they do have like some that are pretty modern. I mean, more modern than I would expect. Like 2016 maybe.
Huh.
Something recent. So they've been making a lot.
Yeah, they made quite a few, and I didn't realize that until I went to look for this one. Because no one ever talks about them, so they can't be that great.
Yeah. But maybe they're like good bad.
Some of them might be. But yeah, and it's kind of like the movie I watched when I was a kid was Beethoven, the movie about the Saint Bernard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that also like has a lot of sequels, like an immense amount of sequels. Yeah, like Beethoven like meets another dog and then they have puppies and like it's like a whole thing.
I did not know that.
I thought I didn't either, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that this family that goes from like not wanting to have any dogs ends up having like 6 extremely large dogs.
Oh no.
That is so expensive.
Which is it is like my personal goal to have like 6 very large dogs. But like, wow,
I have enough dog hair all over my house from one chihuahua that...
Yeah, no, I also have enough dog hair. My dog's a bit bigger than that. She's an Australian Shepherd mix, so she's about 40 pounds, but she also like, she's very
cute.
fluffy and like produces a lot of hair. And also she's all white. And so the hair that she produces is very visible in my mostly black clothing.
Aww.
Ragnar.
Mine's a Chihuahua Pomeranian mix, so she fluffs out a lot, and she's black and white, so it doesn't matter what I wear.
It's right. It's like it'll be visible on something. Yeah.
I've always had this weird goal of having like one light-haired cat and one black-haired cat, and now I have that. But now I'm realizing what a mistake that was because there's like no safe clothing. It's like the black hair is screwed by Icarus. Anything light colored is screwed by Ragnar. But they're worth it, I suppose.
Right.
Oh God,
no. Yeah, no, I've been thinking I really should have like gone with like dark colored animals for the good of my clothing, but no, instead I ended up with like an all white dog. got one last section where we rate the movies. So it's a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, and the criteria is entirely up to you, and we each get to rate the movie as we see fit. So, Sally, do you want to get started in terms of what you would want to rate the movie?
Sure. Purely on like a nostalgia level, I'm gonna rate it like a 3 because I loved watching it just because I remembered being a kid and watching it constantly.
That's fair.
The acting and everything, if it was based on only that, I would say a 1.
Yeah. Mary, what would you give it?
So I'm very conflicted because it's a lot of fun to watch, but it's also like it's terribly made.
Yeah.
It's bad acting from good actors. So I think that probably lands it at like a 3.
Yeah.
A 3 or a 4, just because I'm torn between those opposite poles.
Yeah.
But it's to borrow from the Flophouse, it's good bad, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It definitely is kind of good bad. Like I hadn't seen this before, and so I don't have the nostalgia factor, but like I definitely will say like I enjoyed watching this movie. Like I would probably like recommend it as a good bad movie.
Yeah.
I'm ultimately going to knock my own rating though down to a 2, in part because of the same kinds of considerations that we've talked about, but also just because like as a historian, I would have found it so much less frustrating if it hadn't given us this very precise year. Like, just like imply that it's not set in the real world. Don't be like, this is England in the year 984, and then have that be like, wait, no, but then nothing that you've done makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a weird choice on their part.
Yeah. So given that, I'm gonna knock my rating down to a 2, but I would still, as I said, recommend this as like a fun to watch, like relatively short movie.
Yeah, it's not that long either. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like 90 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good thing to kind of put on in the
A
background.
normal length movie for that.
Especially now,
time.
everyone's all quarantined
Right,
up.
exactly. Like no one really has anything better to do. Watch this movie. Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
A rousing recommendation.
There's a plague outside.
There's a plague
What are you gonna
outside.
do?
Watch a movie about dragons who can talk.
Right. Just pure escapism.
I could watch Rain of Fire.
Right. Yeah, just pure escapism. Flirtatious talking dragons.
That's so odd.
There's another quote that I wrote down. Because it was like, it sounds fucked up. I only chewed in self-defense, but I never swallowed.
Right? I remember that one too.
Like, why?
Draco.
Oh my god. And it's just like weird, like, this one's
weird.
for the parents, y'all. And it's like, but did you have to?
I'm not even sure it was
Yeah,
meant
it's like,
as
do they
that.
know what they're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird.
It doesn't sound like it was meant as one of those, like, here's a joke that only the parents will understand. It sounds like they just completely went over their head. Like, it completely went over their head on how that sounded.
Right. That's also very
Just
possible.
like the image of him sitting in his mouth, straddling the dragon's
Oh my god,
It was so bad.
it was so awkward to watch. Like, my dad's in the room. Like, oh, this is so obviously like
It was
sexual.
so weird.
Don't mind this man riding a dragon's tongue. It's fine. Oh god! And then the dragon even like spits on him. It's like,
yeah, like hacks up a loogie and spits on him while he's sitting in there.
Right. Oh, so gross.
I was like, oh, this
There's
is
like
too
a lot
much.
of dragon drool.
Yeah.
Which I never thought of dragons as prone to drooling.
Nor did I, but apparently.
They also did the weird thing with the dragon where the fire came out of its nose instead of its mouth. That's the
Right.
only time I've ever seen.
Right.
That's the only time I've ever seen one where it comes out of the nose.
Right. It's like fire snot.
Yeah, snow fireball attack.
Fire snot. You always have clear sinuses if you're a dragon.
Dragons are not subject to
I know, that
respiratory-
would be very nice.
Yeah, they're not subject to like respiratory things. You don't have to worry about the dragons getting COVID-19.
Right. They'll just burn it up.
Oh my gosh, there you go. There's a movie. There's a plague or something like COVID-19, and the humans can't find a cure, but dragons are immune, and for some reason we can transfer, use pseudoscience, like maybe some alchemy, throw that in, and just be like, now they're hunting, looking for dragons so they can like take their blood or some organ,
Right.
and make a serum out of it.
A dragon-based.
So the dragons are being hunted for a vaccine instead of because they're eating all the livestock.
Right.
Yeah. They keep mostly to themselves. They're vegetarians now.
I like that. I would also see that movie.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
So, as we finish up here, are there places where the listeners could find you both on the internet?
Yes, we have a joint account on Instagram. It's called The Writer and the Artist with an underscore between each word. It's a little long. And we're also on YouTube through The Artist and the Writer with an ampersand instead of the word and.
Great. So, yeah, everybody should check you both out there. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe in your preferred podcatcher app and rate and review on Apple Podcasts. I will read new 5-star reviews in future episodes. Please also follow the podcast on Twitter at Media-eval Pod and join the Facebook group. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah Ifdecker. And if you have any questions or suggestions, I would love to hear from you via email at media.evalpod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to Media-eval. Bye.
Bye.
Yay!
I go to save the dragon! Who will go with me? Universal Pictures presents a motion picture that will make you believe. Dragonheart.